The kitchen clock read 11:47 p.m. when I heard Nicole's BMW pull into our driveway. My 41st birthday was officially over, and I'd spent it alone with a microwave dinner and a bottle of wine that cost more than most people's weekly groceries. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd bought that wine for us to share tonight. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Michael Harris, and I'm an accountant. Not the most exciting profession, but it pays well, and it's taught me to notice patterns. Like how my wife Nicole has missed every important event in our 12-year marriage because of some family emergency. My birthday last year? Her sister Rachel needed bail money. Our anniversary? Her parents' plumbing exploded. Christmas morning? Her mother had chest pains that turned out to be gas. The front door creaked open, and Nicole's heels clicked across the hardwood floor. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, still beautiful at 38, but looking guilty as hell. Her blonde hair was mussed, lipstick smeared, and she reeked of expensive perfume, not the kind she usually wore. "Hey, honey," she said, avoiding eye contact. "Sorry I'm so late. You know how Mom gets when she's upset." I took a sip of wine and studied her face. After 12 years of marriage, I could read her tells like a balance sheet. The way she touched her neck when she lied, how her left eye twitched when she was nervous, the slight tremor in her voice when she was covering something up. "How is your mother?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Oh, you know, the usual drama. Dad's been drinking again, and she needed someone to talk to." Nicole kicked off her heels and padded to the refrigerator. "Did you eat? I could make you something." "Already ate. Alone. On my birthday." She froze with the refrigerator door half open. "Oh, Mike, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot with all the family stuff going on. We can celebrate tomorrow night, okay?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Let me guess. Tomorrow night your sister will have a crisis, or your dad will need a ride somewhere, or your cousin will need money for rent." Nicole slammed the refrigerator door shut and whirled around to face me. Her green eyes flashed with anger, and for a moment, I saw the real her, not the sweet, devoted wife she pretended to be in public. "My family needs me, Michael. They've always been there for me, and I'll always be there for them. That's what family means. And what about me? What am I to you?" She crossed her arms over her chest, defensive. "You're my husband. But where do I rank? When you have to choose between me and your family, who wins?" Nicole's expression hardened. She looked at me like I was something unpleasant she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. "My family comes first, Michael. You're second. That's just how it is." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because they were cruel, but because they were honest. For the first time in our marriage, Nicole had told me exactly where I stood in her priorities. "Good to know," I said quietly. "Second place is for losers." I finished my wine and walked past her toward the stairs. At the doorway, I turned back. "By the way, Nicole, happy birthday to me." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Nicole snored softly beside me. She'd fallen asleep immediately, probably exhausted from whatever she'd really been doing tonight. Because I knew she hadn't been at her parents' house. I'd driven by there on my way home from work. The house was dark, and both cars were in the driveway. My wife was a liar and a cheat, and she just told me I was second place in my own marriage. But here's the thing about being an accountant. We're very good with numbers. And I was about to show Nicole what happens when you move someone from second place to first. The next morning, I was up at 6 a.m., dressed in my best suit, and out the door before Nicole woke up. I had appointments to keep and arrangements to make. First stop, my lawyer's office. James Morrison had been handling my legal affairs for years. He was a sharp-dressed man in his 50s with silver hair and the kind of smile that made opposing counsel nervous. When I explained what I wanted to do, that smile got wider. "You want to separate all your assets? Remove your name from her business loan? Set up separate bank accounts?" He leaned back in his leather chair. "Michael, what's going on?" "Let's just say I've been reassessing my investment portfolio. Some assets aren't performing as well as I'd hoped." James chuckled. "I see. And you want this done immediately? Today. Can you make it happen? For what you're paying me, consider it done." My next stop was the bank. I'd been the primary account holder on all our joint accounts, and I'd been the one making the deposits for the past 12 years. Legally, I could withdraw every penny, and that's exactly what I did. I left Nicole exactly $1 in each account, enough to keep them open, but not enough to buy a cup of coffee. Then I went to the dealership and bought myself a present. A brand new BMW, nicer than Nicole's. I paid cash. By noon, I was signing a lease on a downtown condo. It was sleek, modern, and expensive, everything our old Victorian house wasn't. The real estate agent, a nervous young woman named Jessica, kept asking if my wife wanted to see the place first. My wife and I have very different tastes, I told her. This is just for me. The final stop was the most satisfying. I went home while Nicole was at her boutique and packed my things. I left her a note on the kitchen counter, right where she'd find it when she came home. Nicole, congratulations. You won. Your family will always come first, just like you wanted. Enjoy your prize. Michael P.S. I'm not second anymore. Then I drove to my new condo, opened a bottle of champagne, and waited for my phone to ring. The call came at 4:17 p.m. I know because I was watching the clock, savoring every minute of Nicole's discovery process. When her name flashed on my phone screen, I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, Nicole. Michael, what the hell did you do? Her voice was shrill, panicked. I went to the bank, and they said you withdrew everything. The business account is empty. My personal account has $1 in it. $1. I was sitting in my new leather recliner, looking out at the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The view was spectacular. I made some financial adjustments, I said calmly. Redistributed assets to better reflect current priorities. This isn't funny. The boutique's loan payment is due tomorrow. If I don't pay it, they'll call in the entire balance. I could lose everything. That sounds like a family emergency. I'm sure your parents will help. There was a long silence. Then, Mike, please, we need to talk about this. I'm coming over. I'm not at the house anymore. What do you mean you're not at the house? Where are you? I bought a condo downtown. Very nice place. Great view. Only room for one, though. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. You left me. I relocated myself from second place to first. It's amazing how much better the view is from up here. Michael, you're being ridiculous. Come home. We can work this out. I am home. And no, we can't. I hung up and turned off my phone. Then I poured myself another glass of champagne and started making a list. If Nicole wanted to play games, she was about to learn that accountants are very good at keeping score. The next morning, I met my friend Frankie at a diner downtown. Frank Rodriguez was an ex-cop turned private investigator, and he owed me a favor from when I'd helped him sort out his taxes after his divorce. He was a big guy with graying hair and tired eyes, but he was sharp as a razor and twice as cutting. So, let me get this straight, he said, cutting into his eggs Benedict. You want me to follow your wife around and document her activities? I want to know what she's really been doing during all those family emergencies. Call it due diligence. Frank grinned. You know, I always liked you, Mike. Most guys come to me crying and begging me to tell them their wives aren't cheating. You're the first one who's asked me to prove that they are. I'm a realist, and I believe in having all the facts before making major financial decisions. This is going to cost you. Money's not an issue anymore. I've recently come into some liquid assets. Frank laughed and shook his head. All right, you heartless bastard. Give me a week. It took him 3 days. We met at the Anchor, a dive bar on the wrong side of town that served good whiskey and minded its own business. Frank slid a manila envelope across the table and ordered another beer. Your wife's been busy, he said, and not with family emergencies. I opened the envelope and found a stack of photographs. Nicole coming out of the Riverside Motel with a man I recognized as Derek Stanton, a local real estate agent with a reputation for sleeping with his clients. Nicole and Derek having lunch at a restaurant across town. Nicole and Derek in his car, parked behind the old mill, doing things that definitely weren't family-related. How long? I asked. Based on what I could dig up? At least 6 months. Maybe longer. The desk clerk at the Riverside knows them by name. They have a regular Tuesday and Thursday arrangement. I thought back over the past 6 months. All those Tuesday and Thursday emergencies. Rachel's court dates, her mother's doctor appointments, her father's AA meetings. There's more, Frank said. Your wife's been using the boutique as cover. Tells her employees she's going to visit suppliers, but she's really meeting Loverboy. The whole town knows about it except you. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. It wasn't heartbreak. It was clarity. Pure, crystalline understanding of exactly what I was dealing with. I need copies of everything, I said. Already made them. What are you going to do? I finished my whiskey and stood up. I'm going to show Nicole what happens when you bet against the house. That evening, I drove to Nicole's boutique just as she was closing up. The shop was called Elegance, and it catered to the wealthy women in town who had more money than sense. Nicole had always been good at separating people from their cash. She saw me through the window, and her face went white. She fumbled with the keys, trying to lock the door before I could get inside, but I was faster. "We need to talk," I said, stepping into the shop. "Michael, you can't just show up at my work. This is harassment." I looked around at the expensive dresses and accessories. "Nice place. Must be doing well to afford rent on Main Street." "Business is fine. More than fine." "That's interesting, because according to your loan documents, you're 3 months behind on payments. The bank's been calling me since I'm the co-signer." Nicole's face flushed red. "That's temporary. I have some big sales coming through." "Is that what you call Derek Stanton? A big sale?" The color drained from her face completely. She grabbed the counter for support. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out one of Frank's photographs and placed it on the counter. It showed Nicole and Derek in a passionate embrace outside the motel. "Tuesday, March 15th. You told me Rachel had a court date. Funny thing is, I called the courthouse. Rachel didn't have court that day. She was at work, at the diner, pulling a double shift." Nicole stared at the photograph like it was a snake. "Where did you get this?" "I hired a professional to find out what my wife really does with her time. Turns out you've been very busy. Tuesdays and Thursdays, regular as clockwork." She looked up at me, and for a moment I saw fear in her eyes. Real, genuine fear. "Michael, I can explain." "No need. The pictures explain everything. The question is, what do I do with this information?" "What do you want?" I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "I want you to understand something, Nicole. You told me I was second place. You made that choice. Now you get to live with the consequences." I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Nicole? You might want to call Derek. I hear his wife might be interested in seeing these photos too." I left her standing there, shaking, surrounded by all her pretty things that she was about to lose. The next few days were beautiful to watch. I'd set up a home office in my new condo, and I spent my time monitoring the financial chaos I'd unleashed. Nicole's boutique loan was called in when she missed her payment. Her personal credit cards were maxed out trying to cover operating expenses. Her landlord served her an eviction notice when the rent check bounced. But the real entertainment came from watching her family's reaction. Nicole's parents, Susan and George Whitman, lived in a decaying mansion on Elm Street that they couldn't afford to maintain but were too proud to sell. They'd been living off credit and Nicole's generosity for years, and now that the money had dried up, they were panicking. I was having lunch at Rosario's, the Italian place downtown, when I saw them through the window. Susan was crying into her napkin while George gestured angrily at his phone. They looked like two people who'd just realized their safety net had disappeared. My phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. "We need to talk. Meet me at the house at 7. I texted back, "Which house? I don't live there anymore. Our house. Please, Mike. It's important." I arrived at 7:15, just to make her wait. The Victorian house looked different now, smaller somehow, shabbier. It's amazing how quickly a place can lose its appeal when you're not emotionally invested in it anymore. Nicole was waiting in the living room, and she looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was unwashed, her makeup was smeared, and she was wearing the same clothes from yesterday. On the coffee table in front of her were stacks of bills and legal notices. "Thank you for coming," she said, not looking at me. "You said it was important? Make it quick. I have plans." She gestured at the papers. "The bank is foreclosing on the boutique. My landlord is evicting me from the shop space. The credit card companies are threatening to sue." "Sounds rough." "Michael, please. I know you're angry, but this affects both of us. We're married. My debts are your debts." I sat down across from her and smiled. "Actually, that's not true anymore. I had my lawyer file separation papers yesterday. As of this morning, we're legally separated. Your debts are your debts." Her mouth fell open. "You filed for separation?" Seemed like the prudent financial move. I needed to protect my assets from your poor decision-making. "You can't do this to me." "I'm not doing anything to you, Nicole. I'm just not doing anything for you anymore. There's a difference." She leaned forward, desperation creeping into her voice. "My parents need help. They're going to lose the house. The bank is threatening foreclosure." "That sounds like a family emergency. You should handle it." "I can't handle it alone. I need your help." I stood up and straightened my tie. "You told me your family comes first. You told me I was second place. Well, congratulations. Your family is all yours now." "Michael, wait!" She jumped up and grabbed my arm. "I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I said that. I didn't mean it." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. "Yes, you did. You meant every word. The only thing you're sorry about is getting caught." I pulled free and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard her start to cry. Big, dramatic sobs designed to make me feel guilty, but I felt nothing except a cold satisfaction. "By the way," I called over my shoulder, "you might want to check your business insurance. I believe adultery voids the coverage on spousal guarantees." The next morning, I was at the Anchor having coffee and reading the newspaper when Mrs. Eleanor Archer slid into the booth across from me. Mrs. Archer was 78 years old, lived next door to my old house, and knew everyone's business in town. She was also one of Nicole's best customers at the boutique. "Michael Harris," she said, her blue eyes twinkling with mischief. "I heard you moved out. News travels fast. Honey, in this town, news travels at the speed of light, especially when it involves Nicole Whitman Harris." I looked up from my paper. "Something you want to tell me, Mrs. Archer?" She leaned forward conspiratorially. "Everyone knows about her and that Derek Stanton. Been going on for months. We all wondered when you'd figure it out." "Everyone knew?" "Sweetie, they weren't exactly discreet, meeting at the Riverside Motel like a couple of teenagers, Derek bragging at Murphy's bar about his high-class piece, Nicole lying to everyone about where she was going." I felt my jaw clench. "And nobody thought to mention this to me?" Mrs. Archer patted my hand. "We figured you knew, and were just being dignified about it. Nicole always said you had an understanding." "An understanding?" "That's what she told people. Said you were fine with her having her freedom as long as she was discreet. Of course, she wasn't very discreet, was she?" I folded my newspaper carefully, using the time to control my temper. Nicole hadn't just cheated on me, she'd humiliated me. Made me look like a fool in front of the entire town. "Mrs. Archer, would you like to know a secret?" Her eyes lit up. "Oh, yes. Nicole's boutique is closing. She's broke, and her parents are about to lose their house." Mrs. Archer gasped. "No." "Yes. And Derek Stanton's wife is getting copies of some very interesting photographs this afternoon." I left Mrs. Archer in the booth, practically vibrating with excitement. By evening, everyone in town would know that Nicole's perfect life was falling apart, and by tomorrow, they'd know exactly why. That afternoon, I drove past Derek's real estate office and saw his wife Janet's car in the parking lot. Through the window, I could see her waving a manila envelope at Derek while he backed away from her, hands raised defensively. My phone rang. Derek's number. "Michael, we need to talk." "I don't think we do, Derek." "Look, man, I know you're pissed, but this thing with Nicole, it's not what you think." I laughed. "Really? What is it then?" "It's just physical, okay? It doesn't mean anything. She's still your wife." "Actually, she's not. We separated. She's all yours now if you want her." There was a long pause. "Separated. Filed the papers yesterday. So congratulations, Derek. You won the prize." "Mike, listen." I hung up and turned off my phone. Then I drove to my condo, opened a bottle of wine, and waited for the next domino to fall. It took exactly 48 hours for Nicole's world to completely collapse. Derek's wife filed for divorce and took half his business. The bank foreclosed on Nicole's boutique, her parents' house went into emergency receivership, and Nicole's sister Rachel got arrested for shoplifting at the grocery store. Apparently, the family's money troubles had hit everyone hard. I was at my office downtown when Nicole showed up. My secretary Linda buzzed me on the intercom. "Mr. Harris, your wife is here. She seems upset. Send her in." Nicole burst through my office door, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was greasy, her clothes were wrinkled, and her eyes were red from crying. "You son of a bitch," she snarled. "You destroyed my life." I looked up from my computer. "I didn't destroy anything, Nicole. I just stopped paying for it." "My parents are losing their house. Rachel is in jail. The boutique is gone." "Sounds like a lot of family emergencies. Good thing family comes first, right?" She slammed her hands on my desk. "This isn't funny. You've ruined everything." "I haven't ruined anything. I've just removed myself from the equation. You wanted your family to come first? Congratulations. Now they're all you have." "Derek won't even take my calls anymore. His wife took everything." I smiled. "Turns out Derek wasn't as committed to second place as you thought." Nicole's face crumpled, and she started crying again. But these weren't the manipulative tears from before. These were real, desperate sobs. "Michael, please, I'm begging you, help me. I'll do anything." "Anything?" She nodded frantically. "Anything. I'll leave Derek. I'll put you first. I'll be the wife you want me to be." I stood up and walked around the desk until I was standing in front of her. She looked up at me hopefully, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Nicole, do you know what the difference is between you and me?" She shook her head. When I make a promise, I keep it. When I commit to something, I follow through. When I say someone is important to me, I mean it. I can change. I can be better. No, you can't. You know how I know? Because you had 12 years to put me first, and you never did. Not once. Every single time you had to choose between me and your family, you chose them. Every birthday, every anniversary, every important moment in our marriage, you chose them. I walked back to my chair and sat down. You made your choice, Nicole. Now live with it. What am I supposed to do? I have nothing. You have your family. The family that comes first, remember? I'm sure they'll take care of you. She stared at me for a long moment, then her expression hardened. The tears stopped, and I saw a flash of the real Nicole, the cold, calculating woman who'd been using me for 12 years. You think you're so smart, she said, but you're nothing without me. You're just a boring accountant with no friends and no life. You'll come crawling back within a month. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a photograph, one of Frank's surveillance photos showing Nicole and Derek in bed at the motel. Actually, I've been thinking about starting a photography hobby. I have some really interesting shots I'd love to share with people. Maybe I'll start a blog. The Secret Life of Nicole Whitman Harris. What do you think? Her face went white. You wouldn't. Try me. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. At the threshold, she turned back. This isn't over, Michael. Yes, it is. After she left, I called Frank Rodriguez. I need another favor, I said. What now? I want you to keep an eye on Nicole and Derek. I have a feeling they're going to do something stupid. How stupid? Desperate people make desperate choices, and desperate choices have consequences. Frank was right to be concerned. 2 days later, he called me at 6 in the morning. You need to get down to the police station, he said. Your wife and her boyfriend just got arrested. I got dressed quickly and drove downtown. The police station was buzzing with activity, and I could see Derek's car in the impound lot, or what was left of it. The front end was smashed, and there were scrape marks along the sides. Detective Ray Morrison, no relation to my lawyer, filled me in. Your wife and Derek Stanton were caught trying to break into your old house last night. When the patrol car showed up, Stanton tried to run. Led us on a chase through downtown before he wrapped his car around a telephone pole. Is anyone hurt? Stanton's got a broken nose and some bruised ribs. Your wife's fine, physically. Emotionally, she's a mess. Keeps demanding to call her parents, but they're not answering the phone. I almost smiled. What were they trying to do at the house? Near as we can tell, they were looking for financial documents. Your wife kept saying something about joint accounts and hidden assets. There are no hidden assets. I withdrew everything legally when we separated. That's what we figured, but desperate people don't always think clearly. I spent an hour at the police station, answering questions and signing statements. Nicole was in a holding cell, and she screamed at me when she saw me walk by. This is all your fault. You drove us to this. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. 1 month later, I was at the Anchor celebrating. The divorce was final, the property settlement was complete, and Nicole was officially out of my life forever. Frank Rodriguez was buying the drinks, and half the town had shown up to congratulate me on my freedom. To Michael Harris, Frank announced, raising his beer, the smartest son of a bitch I know. The crowd cheered and drank. I looked around at all the faces, people I'd known for years, people who'd watched my marriage fall apart, people who'd seen me get played for a fool and then watched me take back control of my life. Mrs. Archer was there, holding court in a corner booth and telling anyone who'd listen about how she'd known all along that Nicole was trouble. Derek's ex-wife Janet was there too, looking happier than I'd seen her in years. Even my secretary Linda had come out, which was saying something since she usually went to bed at 9 o'clock. Speech, someone called out. Speech! I stood up and raised my glass. The bar got quiet. A year ago, I thought I knew what my life was about. I thought I was married to a woman who loved me. I thought I was part of a family. I thought I mattered. The crowd murmured sympathetically. Then I found out I was wrong. I found out I was second place in my own marriage. I found out my wife was cheating on me with a sleazy real estate agent. I found out the whole town knew about it except me. More murmurs, some uncomfortable shifting. But you know what I also found out? I found out what I'm really worth. Not to someone else, but to myself. I found out that I don't have to accept second place. I found out that I can choose to put myself first. I looked around the room, making eye contact with as many people as possible. Nicole used to tell me that family comes first. She was right about that, but she was wrong about who my family is. My family isn't the people who share my DNA or my last name. My family is the people who show up when it matters. The people who tell me the truth, even when it hurts. The people who celebrate my victories and support me through my defeats. I gestured around the room. My family is right here in this room. You people who came out tonight to celebrate with me. You people who had my back when everything fell apart. You people who matter. The crowd cheered again, louder this time. So here's to family, I said, raising my glass higher. Here's to first place. And here's to never settling for second best again. Everyone drank, and the party resumed. I was talking to Linda about taking some vacation time when the front door of the Anchor opened and Nicole walked in. The entire bar went silent. Nicole looked around at all the staring faces, then focused on me. She'd lost weight, and her clothes looked expensive but desperate, like she was trying too hard to look successful. She walked straight to me, ignoring everyone else. Hello, Michael. Nicole, I thought you'd left town. I did. I went to stay with my aunt in Boston, but I came back. Why? She glanced around at all the watching faces, then back at me. Because I realized something. I realized that I made the biggest mistake of my life when I let you go. The bar was so quiet you could hear ice melting in glasses. I want you back, Michael. I want us to try again. I looked at her for a long moment, then started laughing. Not cruel laughter, just genuine amusement. You want me back? Yes. I know I hurt you, but I've changed. I've learned from my mistakes. What about Derek? Her face flushed. Derek was a mistake. A stupid, meaningless mistake. You're my husband. You're the man I love. Actually, I'm not your husband anymore. The divorce was finalized last week. She stepped closer. We can get remarried. We can start over. I shook my head. Nicole, do you know what happened to Derek after you two got arrested? She looked confused. What do you mean? He left town 3 days later. Didn't tell anyone where he was going. Just packed up and disappeared. So? So he left you. Just like I knew he would. Because Derek Stanton isn't the kind of man who sticks around when things get difficult. He's the kind of man who runs away. Nicole's face was getting redder. I don't care about Derek. I care about you. No, you don't. You care about what I can do for you. You care about my money and my stability and my willingness to fix your problems. But you don't care about me. That's not true. I stood up and faced her directly. Oh, Nicole, answer me one question. What's my favorite movie? She blinked. What? My favorite movie. We were married for 12 years. What's my favorite movie? She opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no idea. It's The Shawshank Redemption, I said. We watched it together probably 50 times. What's my favorite food? Again, nothing. Lasagna, my mother's recipe, which I cook every Sunday. What's my middle name? Silence. It's James, after my grandfather, who raised me after my parents passed away. You know, the grandfather whose funeral you missed because your sister needed you to go shopping with her. Nicole's face was bright red now, and she was starting to shake with anger. You never told me any of that stuff was important to you. I shouldn't have to tell you. You should have cared enough to pay attention. The entire bar was watching this exchange like it was a tennis match. Nicole looked around at all the staring faces, then back at me. Fine, she said. You want to humiliate me in front of everyone? Go ahead. But you'll regret this, Michael. You'll spend the rest of your life alone, and you'll remember what you gave up. I smiled. Nicole, I gave up nothing. I got rid of extra weight. She raised her hand to slap me, but I caught her wrist. Don't, I said quietly. You've embarrassed yourself enough for one night. She jerked her hand free and looked around the bar one more time. Every face was staring at her with a mixture of pity and disgust. You people don't know anything, she said to the room. You don't know what really happened. Mrs. Archer stood up from her booth. Honey, we know exactly what happened. You cheated on a good man, and he was smart enough to get rid of you. You're all just jealous because you're stuck in this pathetic little town While you what? Frank Rodriguez interrupted. While you lost your business? While you got arrested? While your boyfriend ran off and left you? Nicole looked around the room desperately, but she found no sympathy anywhere. Finally, she focused on me one last time. This isn't over, Michael. Yes, it is. She turned and walked toward the door. Just before she reached it, she turned back. You know what? You deserve each other. You deserve this pathetic little life in this pathetic little town. I'm going to find someone who appreciates what I have to offer. I raised my glass to her. Good luck with that. But remember, second place is for losers. Nicole stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The bar was silent for about 3 seconds, then everyone started talking at once. Frank Rodriguez slapped me on the back. Jesus, Mike, that was brutal. That was necessary. Mrs. Archer came over and hugged me. You did good, honey. That girl needed to hear some hard truths. I looked around the room at all these people, my real family, my real friends, the people who actually mattered in my life. Then I raised my glass one more time. To first place, I said. To first place, the room echoed back, and for the first time in years, I truly felt like a winner.